Gets into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it! That's for Hopkins. Oh my goodness. Did he catch that? Did he catch that? That's the touchdown catch of the year if that's good.
And the game is over! The game is over! The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions! Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you! Let the celebration begin!
Welcome to 4th and Long, your weekly NFL talk show here on CommRadio. Now, here are your hosts, Jason Marcus and DJ Bauer. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first ever episode of 4th and Long here on CommRadio. I am your host, Jason Marcus, alongside me, DJ Bauer, and we are ready to talk about some NFL football. DJ, how you doing today?
Oh my goodness, it's so good to finally be able to do this. Football is back in a big way, and we are able to talk about it for the first time. I am very excited.
Yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks. Been waiting to get on the air. We had a couple miscommunications, but we are here, and we are ready to dive into everything that is the NFL. And what a first 2 weeks it has been, DJ. No shortage of big stories coming out of the NFL. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you've seen from this young season?
Well, there's just been so much craziness all put into 2 weeks. It's insane. Steelers haven't been as sharp as you think they would have been. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been insane with Ryan Fitzpatrick doing Fitzmagic all over again. It's just, there's been so much madness going on. I just love it. Football is back. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I love this time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year. Football on pretty much every day, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, sometimes Saturday. It is a good time, and as you mentioned, there is a lot of big stories, of course. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the surprise of the season so far. I feel like, what is your thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick? Because he's been in the league for a lot of years. He's been in with, I believe, 8 different teams, and I feel like everywhere he goes, he puts up moderate numbers. I feel like he really is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, but we're seeing this season, at least in the first 2 weeks, he really seems to have stepped it up a notch. He's really playing at a potential league MVP level should he be able to keep this up, or for that matter, keep his job as the season continues. What have you seen from Ryan Fitzpatrick this year that you haven't been able to see in years past?
I really have no idea how the heck he does it. Fitzmagic, just whenever you need him to do it, he does it. And then, he falls on a decline like usual. Might happen again this year. But it's just been insane. I believe that Fitzpatrick is the first quarterback in NFL history to start the first 2 weeks of a season with 400 passing yards and 4 touchdowns in each game.
Yes.
That's pretty ridiculous. Harvard graduate, of course. Always have to mention that.
Let me get your take on this. Now, of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers temporarily because starting quarterback, presumably, Jameis Winston, is suspended for 3 games.
Right.
Obviously, Fitzpatrick will continue to start next week against a vulnerable Steelers. Do you see Fitzpatrick holding on to the starting job come week 4?
I think it all depends on how he does in week 3. Because I don't want to say that the Buccaneers are committed to Jameis Winston, but they've had him for a long time. He's been a pretty solid quarterback, not great. Perhaps they're hoping for him to finally have a breakout season of sorts. Though Fitzpatrick has had the hot hand right now, just absolutely dismantling 2 of the best teams in the NFL, in the Saints and the Buccaneers, the Eagles 2 weeks in a row. No one expected that, obviously, and he has a chance to do it again against the Steelers, who have struggled, but I still think that they're going to pick it up eventually. So he's got another chance to really prove to this team that he's going to be the starting quarterback. I think it all depends on how he does in this Week 3 matchup on Monday.
Yeah, and he's got a really good Week 3 matchup against the Steelers, who just allowed 6 touchdown passes to newly starting quarterback Patrick Mahomes out of Kansas City. So certainly a big opportunity here. And I'm going to be honest, I'm on the side of you ride the hot hand. I'm really not a huge Jameis Winston fan to begin with. And then you just add this on top of that, Fitzpatrick's success over the start of this season. It really seems like the locker room is really behind Fitzpatrick too, even more so than they were for Jameis. So if I'm a Bucs GM or a coach, I kind of feel like this might be Fitzpatrick's team. I know Jameis has got youth on his side, but for as talented as Jameis is, he's never put up the numbers that Fitzpatrick has been putting up over the past 2 weeks. So I don't know how you pull him.
We just got to see how long Fitzmagic lasts.
Absolutely. Also, before we move on to the next topic, did you hear that Minkah Fitzpatrick actually beat Ryan Fitzpatrick to the trademark? He filed it before he filed the trademark of Fitzmagic before that could happen. So intercepted Ryan Fitzpatrick.
What are you doing, Minkah? You can't do that.
He's a businessman. You gotta love it. But
goodness.
What are some other the big stories that you've been paying attention to? Certainly the one this week has been the recent Josh Gordon trade to the Patriots from the Browns. What do you make of this whole Josh Gordon situation?
I think it's all our worst nightmare realized. A talented receiver like Josh Gordon going to the New England Patriots like they needed the help. But it just really confuses me because there never seemed like there was a real clear explanation of what happened. Like he got cut from the team, or technically traded, I guess, now. But from what I saw, it was because he showed up to a practice late. That doesn't seem to make sense at all, especially when he's your best player on the team. You know, at first I was worried that it was something drug-related because he's had problems in the past, but he seems clean now. He didn't fail any tests. So it's really a mystery what the heck the Browns are doing. And, you know, the Patriots got lucky. They needed a receiver, and, well, Josh Gordon is right there into their open arms.
Yeah, I think it is interesting because there's been numerous reports that have come out about as to why maybe Josh Gordon was traded. Some say that officials just thought he didn't seem like himself, that it was an injury could have factored into it because he injured his hamstring in allegedly a photo shoot. And I think what it boils down to is the Browns just basically said they don't trust him. So I want to get your thoughts on this because to me it seemed a little odd because there's a lot of teams in the NFL right now looking for a wide receiver. I'd argue it's probably the most in-demand position right now across the league. And sources are saying that there were multiple teams in play to get Josh Gordon, as rightfully they should. How did the Browns end up trading him to the best team in the AFC, being the New England Patriots? I just feel like out of all the teams you're going to trade him to, you trade him within the conference to the best team within that conference. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I have a hard time believing that there was not a single NFL team willing to give up more than a fifth-round pick for this guy. I just don't get it.
It does seem a little crazy. I don't understand how the Browns can say that they don't trust this guy when he had his massive year in 2013 when he had 1,646 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. And then after the suspension, he came back and immediately made an impact in 2017. So I just don't get what they don't trust about this guy. And to send him to the Patriots, the team that has been, you know, the constant powerhouse of the AFC for 15 years, like they needed the help. I know that Edelman's suspended and their best receiver on the roster is Hogan, but you got to think about it. You know, is it really better for you in the long run if, you know, you're giving them to a team that is going to make sure that nobody else has a chance just so you can get a fifth-round pick?
Right.
And why a fifth-round pick? You can't get any better for that. Gordon has shown that he's one of the most talented receivers in the league. You can't do better than a fifth. And from what I heard, no team was offering better than a sixth conditional. So it just seems ridiculous to me that he's got such a low trade value.
Yeah, Patriots definitely ended up with a huge steal here. It's great for Josh Gordon on his perspective.
Absolutely.
You know, really this couldn't have gone better for him. But for the Browns, I can't help but feel like this was misplayed on their end, as they unfortunately so often do.
Oh, poor Browns. I have to agree with you.
But all right, moving on to the next topic here. Let's talk about Le'Veon Bell and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was reported this week that Le'Veon Bell has officially been scrubbed from pretty much everything Steelers, from their official roster page on their website to promotional and posters and pretty much everything. What is Le'Veon Bell doing here, DJ?
It's kind of interesting to think about because I understand where he's coming from. I mean, he is probably the best running back in the National Football League. He's been very good as a back, as a receiver, one of the most talented players on that Steelers offense. And I understand, you know, wanting to have the long-term financial ability, not getting stuck with the franchise tag year after year after year. So I get that he's frustrated, but I also understand why the rest of the Steelers are frustrated too. I mean, he made a promise that he would be back before the season starts, and he may not be back for the year, or at least until Week 10, so he doesn't get tagged again. But, you know, obviously big controversy in Pittsburgh. I think there's a good chance that Le'Veon Bell isn't going to spend more than the end of this year in a Steelers uniform ever again, especially with James Conner looking as solid as he has so far, but I guess we just have to see how it plays out.
Absolutely, and that'll transition us into our first break of the show. When we come back, we'll continue to talk more about James Conner and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you are listening to Fourth and Long on CommRadio, and we will be right back.
Here at There's a Lot Going On, we like to focus on the most pressing issues facing America in today's society.
You know those lemon cookies? That's not dessert. If you're eating a lemon cookie, what are you doing? You could go cake. You could go ice cream. You could go chocolate chip cookies. A real damn cookie. Lemon cookies are not dessert. And if you'd like to disagree with me, you're wrong, because look at my size. If you ever try to serve me a lemon cookie, I'll throw it at you.
So tune in to There's a Lot Going On, Fridays from 3 to 4 here on CommRadio.
Want to look like you belong on Penn State's sideline this season? You can when you shop Nike's 2018 Sideline Collection at Lions Pride. Visit our downtown State College location at 112 East College Avenue or shop with us online anytime, 24/7 at lions-pride.com. We are
Lions Pride. Show the world your Penn State side. Lions Pride. You live it, you love it. Lions Pride.
And what's the deal with that There's a Lot Going On show? I mean, how do they all fit in the studio? You got the Ginger guy, you got Jimmy Neutron, and then the Brandon kid. I mean, how do they even fit in there? That show, blacklist your radios, 3 to 4 on Fridays. Oi, it's a bad show. 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 It's a bad show.
You're listening to Fourth and Long with DJ Bauer and Jason Marcus here on CommRadio.
And we are back here on Fourth and Long on CommRadio, the first show of our new podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me is DJ Bauer. We are currently recapping the top stories through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. And briefly, we talked about the whole Le'Veon Bell situation before the break, but I want to keep talking about it because I think it deserves a lot of attention. And one thing that we had mentioned is that James Conner has come in for the first 2 weeks, filled in for Le'Veon Bell, and more than exceeded expectations. He has thrived in that role. He's put up some really good numbers here. And DJ, I gotta ask, what do you think about the future of not only Le'Veon Bell, but James Conner as well? Where do the Steelers go from here?
Well, as for Bell, I think he's going to be just fine wherever he ends up. Someone's going to pay him, even though the Steelers aren't. There's going to be a team out there that is. As for the Steelers, they've looked pretty solid with James Conner so far. He had a massive week 1 against Cleveland, which he had 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last week, not as impressive. They only gave him the ball 8 times. I'm not sure why. Probably a big reason why they lost that game to Kansas City.
Yeah.
But he has looked pretty good, and I like everything about this kid except his haircut.
Yeah, what is up with that haircut?
I have no idea. They called it business in the front, party in the back, but I don't.
It's not a mullet.
It's almost a mullet. It's
I don't know
weird.
what it
it's
is.
weird what it is.
But at first I thought he was like, oh, this is what they do to rookies. They just give them weird haircuts. And then I realized James Conner's not a rookie. He's just really I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what that's all about.
He's a grown man. He can make his own decisions.
Yeah, and nonetheless, he's a really good football player.
Plays good football, yes. I think that from what we've seen so far, Conner looks like he's going to be a good replacement for Bell, but we need to give him a little bit more time to develop. I think 2 weeks is too quick to jump to a conclusion. We'll see how the Steelers play it out from here.
All right, so last thing before we move on from this topic, I'm going to give you 3 options. I want to give you what you think is the most likely scenario.
All right.
Option number 1, Bell comes back at some point this year and finishes out the season as a Steeler. Option number 2, Bell doesn't play at all this entire NFL season, sits out the entire season. Or option 3, Le'Veon Bell plays this season, but not as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I'm going to go with 1.
Okay.
I don't think that the Steelers are ready to trade him yet. I know he's officially been taken off the roster as of today, I believe, but they can still bring him back until week 10, I believe, because I believe after week 10 is whenever the franchise tag rules comes in. So if he's not back by week 10, the Steelers can tag him again. So I think he'll be back by that point and play the last couple weeks of the season as a Steeler. But after that, I'm pretty sure he's going to be gone.
Yeah, I don't see how Le'Veon Bell continues in Pittsburgh, especially after this season is done. But I think the problem right now, as you were saying, is that he has been tagged. He just won't sign it.
Right.
So even if Week 10 comes, they can't. They're really just out of options. Since at this point, they're just until he pays him, somebody pays him the money he wants. I don't think he's going to get on a football field. But that's enough about Le'Veon Bell. We don't like to give attention to poor sports here. So. Or more than enough attention, I should say. We've given him a little bit. But one big story that has been also coming out of the NFL this week has been the emergence of Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. DJ, have you been impressed with Mr. Mahomes so far?
Goodness, yes, I have. I was worried about Mahomes last year. They traded away Alex Smith. I thought, Chiefs, what are you doing? That's your man.
Right.
He had for the first 3 quarters of the year last year, he had an MVP season. Shipped him away over to Washington. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is really a good choice for the Chiefs. But man, oh man, has Mahomes looked impressive against the Chargers and then the Steelers. 10 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. I believe that's a record.
It is quite impressive.
Just absolutely impressive. Andy Reid really. I know that Andy Reid gets a lot of flack because his teams fall up short in the playoffs, but man, oh man, is he a very good quarterbacks coach.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
he made Alex Smith what he was in Kansas City, and now he's doing it again with Mahomes.
I mean, we could have a podcast solely dedicated to Andy Reid's coaching tree and the quarterbacks that have come out from underneath him. I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I'm an Eagles fan, so I am a little biased. I wasn't one of those fans that wanted Andy Reid out. I thought it was time for him to go, but I was sad to see him go.
Right.
He is a Hall of Fame coach. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if he doesn't win the Super Bowl. Look at his coaching tree. Look at the players who have thrived underneath him. Look at his record. He's a Hall of Fame coach. That's undisputed in my opinion, and I think he doesn't get the respect.
I agree. I think he's a very good coach. And obviously Kansas City looks very good. Would like to see him eventually get that big one. It might be difficult considering there's a lot of talent, especially in the NFL this year and in the NFC, that, it is absolutely loaded. So if they get to the Super Bowl, it won't be any easy task. But the Chiefs are looking really solid this year, especially for a team that I think a lot of people picked to regress a little bit because they have a new quarterback and another upstart team in the AFC West are the Chargers. A lot of people picking to win that division. So I think that the Chiefs are turning a lot of heads here early, and a lot of that relies on Reid and Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kareem Hunt has been far less of a factor than he was last year. I really haven't heard him mentioned much. It's really all been Mahomes and a little bit of Tyreek Hill. Because he's had a really good past couple of weeks. But, yeah, I mean, we've seen this in recent years from the Chiefs a lot. They get really hot at the beginning of the year and then usually just can't find a way to close it out. So should be interesting to see what Mahomes' campaign as a starter in his first year will end up being. And then one last major story before we recap the games from last week. I want to talk about this upcoming week, the return of Carson Wentz.
The good old Messiah in the city of Philly.
Absolutely. He is returning from an ACL injury that he suffered in December. Highly anticipated. What are your thoughts on this Carson Wentz injury and return? And do you think he'll be able to go back to the level that he was playing at when he got hurt?
I think it's going to take a little bit of time to ease him back into the system. It's not something I think is going to happen automatically. I am happy to see that the Eagles are now confident enough to put him back in, because Foles has had, a decent outings in Week 1 and Week 2, but Peterson feels confident that, Carson Wentz is ready to play, then he's ready to play, and I'm excited to see him get back on the field again this week against Indianapolis. I know Colts fans are not excited to see him on the field this week, but, plenty of his weapons are still there. He's got Nelson Aguilar, he's got Alshon Jeffrey, lot to work with, and like I said, I don't think it's going to be instant, but he is going to be making an impact again this year.
All right, well, I'll address my take on that at the end of the show here, so you're going to have to wait and see what I think of that. But we're going to take our quick second break of the show, but when we come back, DJ, we're going to recap everything that happened in Week 2 and then start to preview this upcoming week, Week 3. So you are listening to Fourth and Long on CommRadio, and we will be right back.
Hey CommRadio listeners, stay up to date with everything Penn State by following us on Twitter at PSU CommRadio. The CommRadio Twitter handle has everything you need to know about Penn State athletics and the State College community. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos, constant sports and news updates, information about upcoming broadcasts, and more. Don't miss anything from Penn State's fastest-growing student media outlet by following us on Twitter at PSU CommRadio. CommRadio, wherever you are, we are. News, sports, talk.
Want to look like you belong on Penn State's sideline this season? You can when you shop Nike's 2018 Sideline Collection at Lions Pride. Visit our downtown State College location at 112 East College Avenue or shop with us online anytime, 24/7 at lions-pride.com. We are
Lions Pride, show the world your Penn State side. Lions Pride, you live it, you love it, Lions Pride.
LeBron James and Lonzo Ball will lead the Lakers to their 17th NBA championship.
With takes this hot, there's a reason we're on air Thursdays at 8 o'clock.
Join Ben Jenkins and Ben Ferree as we talk all things trending in sports.
From NASCAR to golf, we've got you covered on the week's most important events.
And remember, 2 Bens are better than 1.
You're listening to Fourth and Long with Jason Marcus and DJ Bauer here on CommRadio. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fourth and Long on CommRadio. I am your host, Jason Marcus, alongside me, DJ Bauer, and we are excited to have our first show of Fourth and Long for you guys. It's been a long time coming. I think we're off to a pretty good start. It's been a very good, exciting 2 weeks of the NFL season. But now we are going to start to look forward, but in order to look forward, we must, of course, look back at the most recent happening. So the first game we're going to start with is last week's Thursday night football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati comes out with a win here, 34-23 through a huge performance by AJ Green. DJ, what are your thoughts on these two teams, the Ravens and the Bengals?
I'm particularly interested this year to see how the Bengals do, because they are off to a much hotter start than I ever would have imagined. 2-0, beating both the Colts in Week 1 and now the Ravens in Week 2. And especially surprising considering that John Harbaugh and the Ravens have had such a good record in primetime games. So to see them losing on Thursday night to Cincinnati was definitely a little bit of a shock. What I want to see is that if Cincinnati can stay hot, because they've looked pretty solid, though I do think there are a little bit of holes there. They almost let the Ravens come back from 21 down to win that game, only really putting it away in the final couple minutes there. And I think Dalton especially has looked really good since Week 3 of last season, I believe. Dalton has thrown 31 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, so he's quietly been one of the more solid quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm excited to see how the Bengals go from here. Maybe if they have a good season, it was a good decision to not fire Coach Marvin Lewis after the end of last year. Maybe they'll get into the playoffs. We don't know. It's very early, but the Bengals have looked promising so far.
Yeah, I don't really see either of these teams as really big playoff threats. But I will agree with you in that I think the Bengals have surpassed my expectations for the past 2 weeks. I actually thought, and I still kind of think, that they will actually end up being in last place in the AFC North, even below Cleveland. But they've looked really good the first 2 weeks. Of course, then you had Baltimore, who started off Week 1 really hot with a 40-0 victory and then struggled for the most part last Thursday against Cincinnati. So it was a good, fun matchup. I don't really see either team being a threat down the line, though.
I got a fun fact for you.
Okay.
Bengals, Week 1 and Week 2, won both of their games by a score of 34-23.
Wow. That's you know what? That's why we got DJ on the podcast.
It's riveting information.
Riveting information. Speaking of some riveting information, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Steelers, Chiefs, of course, the whole Le'Veon Bell and James Conner situation. Patrick Mahomes being an absolute enigma in the first 2 weeks through six touchdown passes in this game. I want to get your thoughts on, do you think the Steelers are going to be able to bounce back from this? And also, where do the Chiefs go from here? Do they continue their hot streak?
As a Steelers fan, it makes me very sad to see that they're beginning the year 0-1-1 with a tie against the Browns and a home loss against the Chiefs, a team who they've beaten repeatedly over the past couple years. The Chiefs finally broke a curse with this one. But the offense is not really what I'm worried about. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger looked kind of iffy in Week 1, but he had a great game this week with 452 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, threw a lot of passes, 39 completions on 60 attempts. That's a lot of times that you're throwing the ball there, but hey, he can get it done. Had over 100 passer rating. Not as good as Mahomes, of course, but still fine. The thing that's really got me worried is the defense.
Yes.
Because I know that the loss of Le'Veon Bell is big, but so far it has not been as big as the loss of Ryan Shazier. That
Right.
defense has looked absolutely different with Shazier off the field. I believe since he's been gone, they've been 3-1 in their games, where they were 22-6, I think, with him on the field. So I think he was the leader of that defense, no doubt, a huge difference maker. And to not see him out there on the field this year is what's giving the defense a lot of problems.
Yeah, but I would argue that the secondary is more of the issue for Pittsburgh because you don't. I mean, certainly Shazier had an impact, and certainly his, his value is being missed. But at the same time, I don't think you're able to throw 6 touchdown passes if the secondary is up to speed. So a lot of problems for Pittsburgh, a lot of things going right for Kansas City. Should be exciting to see where both of those teams go from here. The next game I want to talk about is the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. The Miami Dolphins are able to get a rare road win here by a score of 20-12. I think the big story through this game was the emergence of rookie quarterback Sam Darnold. DJ, what are your thoughts on Sam Darnold so far? He's only played 2 games in his NFL career, but what have you seen from him so far?
Pretty interesting stuff, because first week of the season, he threw interception, returned for a touchdown on his first pass. You think, oh, great, draft bust again for the Jets. But no, then he goes out and has a fantastic performance against the Detroit defense, and they end up winning that game 48 points of offense, just absolutely insane. And now you're thinking, all right, Darnold's the guy. And then he goes out here and has a stinker in week 2 where he loses to the Miami Dolphins at home. I mean, that's not something that you can do easily. I'm not sure what to think of Darnold yet. I think he needs a little bit more time to develop. Week 1 might have just been a fluke. Perhaps the Lions aren't that good this year. But then again, week 2 might have been an off week. I don't think it's time to draw a conclusion on Darnold yet just because there's so much mystery to decide on.
And also one thing that's kind of really been not really talked about is through 2 weeks, the Dolphins are 2-0. They got a big home win against Tennessee in week 1. Of course, a road win here against the Jets. Are the Dolphins legit?
I don't know yet. They're 2-0, but they've beaten the Titans, who had half their roster injured, and the Jets, who I'm not convinced on yet either. They've still got a pretty brutal schedule down the line. Still have to play the Patriots twice, of course. Other teams that have looked pretty solid, like the Bears and the Packers and the Vikings and Jaguars. So it's not going to be an easy season for the Dolphins. Jumping out to a 2-0 start is nice, but I don't think it's going to last.
All right. And the next game we have is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I thought this was one of the better games throughout week 2. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to upset the Super Bowl champions and get a close 27-21 win. What did you see from this game here from both sides?
I saw a whole bunch of Fitzmagic. That's what I saw.
Hey, you can't use that. Minka copyrighted
Minka,
it.
don't sue me, Minka.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Fitzpatrick, as we already talked about at the beginning of this year, just looking really impressive. I don't think it's time to worry about anything in Philadelphia. I mean, Fitzpatrick had a good game. We don't know how much of that is going to last, but Philly has still looked pretty solid. Good victory in week 1 against Atlanta. They still have a whole bunch of stars on that defense and one of the deepest lines in the league with guys on there like Fletcher and Fletcher Cox and Chris Long. And this whole roster is very stacked, and with Carson Wentz coming back, it's only going to get better. So I don't think the loss to Tampa Bay should be too much to worry about.
No, I agree. I think actually the Eagles had a lot of injury problems in this week too. They lost Ajayi for a good amount of the game. They lost Peters. They obviously have a lot of injuries to wide receivers with Alshon Jeffrey not returning yet. Mike Wallace now officially out for the year. So I actually think that they really had no business being as close as they were, considering how hot Ryan Fitzpatrick has been. So I think it's actually more of a positive for the Eagles. Also, just a side note for anyone wondering, the Eagles lost in week 2 last year to the Kansas City Chiefs, and we all know how that season ended. So not too worried from any of these Philadelphia Eagles fans here, but very much impressed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so far.
Maybe we'll see a Buccaneers-Eagles rematch in the NFC Championship game. You remember how that happened last time? That went down in 2002.
Ugh, don't remind me, DJ.
Rondé Barber.
Yeah.
You say his name and Philly fans hate you.
I know. I said don't remind me. Next game we have was the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints, and poor Cleveland.
Oh, my goodness.
Poor Cleveland.
They can't get a break.
They can't get a break.
They absolutely cannot. They had how many opportunities to win this game?
Too many.
Too many.
Final score of this one, New Orleans Saints is able to win it in regulation 21-18, but the story here is that if the Cleveland Browns were able to have a functional kicker, they'd be 2-0, but instead they fall to 0-1-1. DJ, what is going on with the Browns? Do you think they'll be able to turn this around? And more importantly, when are they going to get their first win?
It's interesting to see.
If they get their first win.
Zane Gonzalez, 2 for 4 on field goals, 0 for 2 on extra points. He makes one of those field goals. We have a tie game. He makes one of those extra points, and the Browns go home champions. I'm a little concerned about the Saints, actually, on the other end, because they let the Browns come into New Orleans and almost beat them. That's not something that happens often. But as for Cleveland, they've got a pretty good chance this week with the Jets coming to town. Like I said, I'm not sold on the Jets yet. That could be, very much be a win. Those two teams are playing on Thursday. Got a couple of other, I'd say, underhand pitches here with the Raiders and the Ravens. I mean, they're going to get a win eventually. It's going to happen. This team is so much more talented than it was last year. Guys like Denzel Ward already making a massive impact on this team. So it'll come eventually. Your day in the sun will finally come, Cleveland fans.
All right. So Browns looking certainly better than they did last year, but still looking for that elusive first win. Next game we're going to is the Indianapolis Colts at the Washington Redskins. Colts are able to pick up a road win here by a score 21-9. Andrew Luck has looked really good. Andrew Luck has looked really good since coming back from injury here. What has your thoughts been on the Redskins, specifically with the addition of Alex Smith running this offense as opposed to Kirk Cousins?
Very similar in my thoughts, at least, to the Jets, and a team that looked really good in Week 1 and then took a huge step back in Week 2. There's way too much of an NFL season left to be played to make a decision on these guys yet, but I do think that Alex Smith is going to be a good replacement for Cousins. I'm not sure if he's going to be better because Cousins was younger. I think he's got a lot more upside than Alex Smith does coming into the season just because Smith is so much older. But he's still a good veteran presence for this offense. And if that offensive line can stay healthy, then I think that the offense is going to be a lot more dangerous than it was last year when they had 4 or 5 guys on that line get hurt, absolutely decimated the Redskins. But I do think they're going to have a little bit of a bounce back year. Don't know if they're going to quite make a playoff push, but I do think that they're going to be better.
I agree with you. I think these teams are very similar in the sense that they're both led by extremely talented quarterbacks, but really not much else other than that. I see both of these teams, specifically the Redskins, I definitely think are going to come either 4th or 3rd in the division. I don't know. NFC East is tough to call. I just don't see them winning it. AFC South, certainly a lot more competitive with Indianapolis, Houston, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. So it should be interesting to see where these teams go from here. But excited to see Andrew Luck back healthy and excited to see Alex Smith back in a role where he is thriving as well. The next game we have was the Los Angeles Chargers at the Buffalo Bills. Chargers win this one 31-20 in convincing fashion. This game was notable because it marked the first career start of rookie quarterback Josh Allen out of Wyoming. What did you see from Josh Allen here?
He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't good either. 18 for 33, 245 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Those are kind of meh stats, nothing that really jumps out at you. But I do think that it's a little bit better than what you would imagine considering his circumstances. He's got no offensive line. He doesn't really have any offensive weapons other than LaShawn McCoy. The team's not really much of a support for him. He's just been thrust into a terrible role right out of the gates. Like I said, I don't understand what the Bills were doing this offseason.
I agree.
They shipped away Tyrod Taylor and A.J. McCarron, their 2 best quarterbacks on the roster. Nathan Peterman, as we all know, is not a good quarterback. And Josh Allen is just too young. I think eventually he is going to be the starter of this team, but they're thrusting him.
Well, he is the starter.
Right. I mean like a good starter.
Okay.
They're thrusting him into this role too quickly, and I think it might do a Tim Couch and just turn him into a bad player because he's on a bad team. I firmly believe that if Tim Couch had gone on any other team than the Browns in those early 2000s, he would have had a good career. But no, he was on the Browns, so he sucked. And I think that Josh Allen has a very serious chance of doing that as well.
Yeah, definitely not the analogy any NFL player wants to hear is being compared to Mr. Tim Couch, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the entire situation here has been botched from the beginning from the Buffalo front office. Really poor mismanagement during this offseason, and now Josh Allen is thrown into this spot where he is not ready for. Also, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention this. Vontae Davis retires at halftime halftime during this game. Unprecedented to just quit in the middle of an NFL game. What was your reaction to this
Left
news?
the field and said, "I'm done." My goodness, Vontae
That doesn't
Davis.
sum up what's going on in Buffalo right now.
Couldn't be more blunt. Exactly my thoughts. Shows you what kind of dysfunction is going on with this organization right now. At least he had the courtesy to release official statement on Twitter after the game, but just to pull yourself out at halftime and say, "Hey, guess what? I'm done, guys." We've never seen anything like that before, and I think it's very significant of what's going on with the Bills right now.
Yeah, and real quick, Chargers, are they legit?
I think so. They haven't been super convincing so far, but they had a tough week one against a Chiefs team that looks very good. They defense gave up 20 points to the Bills, which is a little bit worrisome, I guess. But Joey Bosa's had a little bit of injury issues. Whenever he gets healthy, he's going to be dominant. I feel bad for the Chargers because they've always had a bad injury bug, but Phillip Rivers has looked as fine as he ever has. 3 touchdowns, 256 yards in this game. He was 23 for 27, only 4 incompletions. Very impressive. And, now that he's got weapons like a healthy Keenan Allen and Virgil Green and Tyrell Williams and Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler to hand the ball, there's a lot of weapons on this offense, and I do think that the Chargers are going to make some noise in the AFC this year.
Awesome. Next game we're going to move on to is the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. This game actually ends in a tie, the second tie in 2 weeks. What do you make of these new overtime rules?
They're interesting. Only having a 10-minute period instead of a full 15-minute period is a little bit weird. I think it does make the game go a little quicker, but not much. I don't really understand it, especially when I think possibly you give these two teams another, 5 minutes and one of them finally makes the winning score. Minnesota had, God knows how many opportunities with Daniel Carlson missing all 3 of his field goal attempts. Just bad luck there, but both of these teams have looked fine, and a tie is not great, but it's not terrible either. I mean, it shows you are competitive for the entire game, especially against 2 teams that I think are going to be contenders in the NFC North this year. So, it's something that both teams will just have to brush off and, get ready for next week.
Of course, that game ended in that tie by a score of 29-29. So Aaron Rodgers, we're still not 100% sure as to how healthy he is, if he's going to be able to play the entire season. The Vikings offense looks like it hasn't missed a beat with new quarterback Kirk Cousins under the helm. But, of course, kickers here has been the theme of week 2. If they could just kick those field goals, we'd have a lot more wins and a lot more happy franchises.
They got Dan Bailey now, so it only goes up from there.
True, he's the second most accurate kicker in NFL history. I'm surprised it took this long for him to get a job.
Oh, yeah, I still don't understand why the Cowboys cut him. He's one of the best in the league.
Same reason they cut Dez. They have no idea what they're doing.
Got another fun fact for you here, though.
All right, here we go. DJ's fun facts.
It's the first time, I believe the year was 1971, that there have been 2 ties within the first 2 weeks of the season.
There you go. All right, next game we had the Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta was able to win this one by a score 31-24, redeem themselves from a tough opening week loss here. Otherwise, I feel like there really wasn't too much coming out of this game story-wise. What did you see from this game, if anything, that really caught your attention?
In the Injury Bowl?
Yeah.
Both teams look solid despite losing a lot of big players. Of course, Carolina having to deal without Greg Olsen and the foot injury. 2 massive losses to the Falcons defense with Keanu Neal and Deion Jones both going down last week. But both teams still looked pretty solid. I mean, the Falcons got the win in the end, but I don't think there's really any reason to be concerned with either of these squads. I do think both of them are going to put fine campaigns together in 2018 like they did last year.
I agree with you. Real quick, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to finish talking about week 2, move into week 3, and then end the show with some bold predictions. So you guys are listening to 4th and Long on CommRadio, and we will be right back.
Are you upset that your favorite radio show where the host had the same name is no longer on the air?
If so, we have some good news.
Listen in to the Ben and Ben Show every Thursday at 8 for all your trending sports talk.
Even with Shea Patterson, Michigan still finishes no higher than 4th in the East.
I could not agree with you more, Ben.
And remember, 2 Bens are always better than 1.
Want to look like you belong on Penn State's sideline this season? You can when you shop Nike's 2018 Sideline Collection at Lions Pride. Visit our downtown State College location at 112 East College Avenue or shop with us online anytime, 24/7 at lions-pride.com. We are
Lions Pride, show the world your Penn State side. Lions Pride, you live it, you love it, Lions Pride.
Mark it down right now. Bengals are going to give Marvin Lewis a 10-year extension at the end of this season.
I think this offseason has really impacted the Seahawks. I think they're going to come in last place in their division. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the entire NFC.
Tune in on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. for 4th and Long with Jason Marcus and DJ Bauer here on CommRadio.
Welcome back to 4th and Long with Jason Marcus and DJ Bauer here on CommRadio. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to 4th and Long. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, alongside DJ Bauer. A little bit of fake news there from that intro. We are no longer Tuesdays at 7. We are, in fact, Wednesdays from 6 to 7. So we will hopefully get that fixed up in the coming weeks. But we appreciate you guys listening to us now. Hopefully you join us in the future weeks. Again, that is every Wednesday, 6 to 7, 4th and Long, Jason Marcus and DJ Bauer. Real quick, we got to finish up week 2 before we can move into week 3. So Titans win this one 20-17 at home. Deshaun Watson looked completely underwhelming to start this season. What is your thoughts on Deshaun Watson?
I'm surprised. He has not looked as solid as I would have imagined, especially considering how hot he was last year. And the fact that he's got, a couple great weapons in DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. The one that really surprises me the most here is that the Titans, they looked fine with Marcus Mariota out, with Delaney Walker out, with Taylor Lewan out, and Jack Conklin. They lost almost all the key parts of their offense, and they won the game.
And then, of course, we had the Rams rout the Cardinals at home 34-0. How long before we see Josh Rosen, DJ?
I'm not sure. Bradford has been completely underwhelming. I mean, you talk about the Bills being the worst team in the NFL so far, but I think that title could easily go to the Cardinals. A total of 6 points in their first 2 games. Didn't even cross the midway point on the field until there were 30 seconds left in the game. This team has looked absolutely atrocious on offense, which, considering they have guys like David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald, you would not expect this at all, but I don't think it's going to be long before we start seeing Rosen throwing the ball.
Next 2 games, really not much to talk about. San Francisco gets a home win over the Detroit Lions 30-27, and the Denver Broncos get on a home win over the Oakland Raiders 20-19. Has Jimmy Garoppolo led up to your expectations so far?
Again, kind of like Deshaun Watson. I think he had a lot of overhype going into this year. There's still plenty of season to be played, so we'll see how he does, though. He had a nice rebound game, 2 touchdowns, 206 yards, solid stats, not super exciting or anything, but there's still time.
Jaguars get a home win, 31-20 over the New England Patriots in a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Blake Bortles looked really good in this one. Do you think Blake was able to silence his critics on this one, or do you think people are still going to be calling for his job after this?
I mean, there's always going to be haters, and I feel bad because I like Blake. He's a nice guy. He did an AMA on Reddit the other day. You can guess that I was all over that. And it's nice that the Jaguars knew not to let up on the gas pedal this time, because they did in the AFC Championship game last year, and that's why they lost. But they came away with the win here at home, a big win over the Patriots. Like you said, Bortles looking fine. I do think that he's finally going to be able to become a better quarterback this year now that all the pieces are in place, and I think the Jags are going to make a deep run this year.
I agree with that. Cowboys get a big home win on Sunday Night Football over the New York Giants by a score of 20-13. The Giants, the story of the game here, just looked absolutely terrible. The scoreboard makes it look a lot closer than it actually was. Their offensive line struggled since the beginning of this season. What do they have to do to get back on pace here, or is that not even an option at this point?
It's going to be difficult. They have no offensive line, and they have no pass rush. I don't know how you're going to win games with that. You can, do whatever you want, pay your wide receiver big bucks, draft the best running back in the draft, but if you can't fix the key pieces on the offensive and defensive line, it's not going to work. I don't think that the Giants are going to have a very good season this year. Eli Manning has looked meh. Maybe they were hoping that he was going to have a comeback year with Beckham healthy again and Saquon to hand the ball off to, but it's not been looking good for the Giants.
It has not. Saquon Barkley caught 14 catches in that game, which was a record for the New York Giants, but still not enough to come up with a divisional win here on Sunday Night Football. And then the last game of Week 2 is the Monday Night Football matchup between the Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. Bears win this one by a score 24-17 in a really good game. Khalil Mack has looked like he's been worth every penny that he's been paid for. What did you see from that game?
I know the Raiders miss him already, obviously. Person I feel bad for is Russell Wilson. My goodness, that guy gives his heart on every single play, and he gets no help. They had the coaches calling timeouts when Russ was trying to run an audible. You could see he was very visibly upset about that, considering there was still plenty of time on the game clock. And just the pick six to seal the game. You got to feel bad for Russell Wilson. He's one of the most talented players in this league, and he doesn't have much help on the team. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be very good this year, but hey, it was Russell Wilson. I still think anything's possible.
All right, that was Week 2 in the NFL. We are now going to quickly move into Week 3 here. We're going to go game by game, just a couple sentences of what your thoughts are for this game, and then I want a winner pick from you as well. So, first game we're going to start with, it is, of course, tomorrow night's primetime matchup between the New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns. Sam Darnold versus Tyrod Taylor. Tell me about this, and do the Browns get their first win?
Glorious matchup there, Taylor and Darnold. I'm going to say no. I think that the Jets go into Cleveland and they pull out with the win. I think Darnold has a bounce-back week. Even with a good kicker, I still don't see the Browns winning.
I agree. I would love to see Cleveland get the win here, but I'm going to take Sam Darnold and the Jets to win this one. I think Darnold has looked really promising, and I think the Browns have shown that they will always find a way to screw it up at the end. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope I come on the show next week and the Browns have a win.
Poor Brownies.
But I'm going to take gangrene on this one. Okay, Buffalo Bills at Minnesota Vikings. Seems like a no-brainer to me, but DJ, what are your thoughts?
It is a no-brainer. The Bills don't have anything. Vikings win.
Yeah, I agree. Vikings, I think, will win this one in convincing fashion. If you guys are in any suicide pools, this is the one that this is your slam dunk.
Yeah.
New York Giants at the Houston Texans, two teams that have been underwhelming to start this year. Of course, you got Saquon Barkley for the Giants up against Deshaun Watson for the Texans, two electrifying players. Both teams desperately need a win. Who do you got and why?
Man, 0-3 is going to be a death sentence for whoever gets this. I think that the Texans need it more because the Jaguars are going to pick up ground really fast in that AFC South.
Agreed.
And I like them to win.
I agree. I think the Giants are in too much of dysfunction right now. I think the Texans are going to find a way to pull this one out, but I don't think it's going to be – I think it's going to be close. I don't think either one is going to pull away. Up next, we have the Green Bay Packers at the Washington Redskins. A good game in my eyes. Two very good quarterbacks in Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers of the 2005 draft class. Who you got and why?
I like the Redskins to bounce back and at least have a better performance than they did last week against Indy. But Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. I'm picking the Packers.
I agree with that one as well. I find it hard to ever doubt against Aaron Rodgers, even if he is on one leg. I think it'll be a very good matchup. I think it'll be an offensive shootout type of game, but I do see the Green Bay Packers coming away with this one. San Francisco 49ers at Kansas City Chiefs, two of the premier young quarterbacks in this league, DJ. Jimmy G, Jimmy Garoppolo versus Patrick Mahomes. Who you got and why?
I'm going Mahomes again. I think that he's going to stay hot. He's still got those weapons in Hill and Kelsey and that entire hot Chiefs offense. I believe that the 49ers are the 26th ranked pass defense. I don't see them suddenly turning on the Jets and cooling out Mahomes in the Kansas City offense.
I agree with you completely on this one. I think Kansas City gets the win. Similar to the Packers-Redskins, I think this is going to be an offensive shootout. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to do enough to keep the 49ers competitive in this game, but I think their secondary is going to be a real liability for the 49ers. I think Mahomes is going to eat the secondary alive in this one, and I think the Chiefs get a win here in convincing fashion. Oakland Raiders at the Miami Dolphins.
I think this is going to secretly be one of the better games in this week.
Interesting. Okay.
Because even though we've talked about the Raiders as not looking all that impressive, the offense has been better than we think. Because last week against Denver, Derek Carr was 29 of 32. That's hard to do, to only throw 3 incompletions all game. And I'm still a little worrisome about, John Gruden and how the whole coaching is going to go down there in Oakland. But I like them to go into Miami and come out with their first win of the year.
I agree. I actually I like Oakland in this one as well. I think Derek Carr is going to have a good game for this one. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to come down the wire. Not a great game in terms of statistically, but I think both teams are pretty even. So I think it's going to be a good game in that sense. So I'm going to go with Oakland gets a road win here, but I feel like this one could easily be a toss-up.
Sure thing.
Indianapolis Colts at the Philadelphia Eagles. For my money, probably the best matchup of the week. Andrew Luck against Carson Wentz in his return to action. Who you got?
Something that I think is going to be interesting here is that it's Frank Reich's return to Philadelphia.
Very true.
Now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I wonder if he's got anything in his bag of tricks to surprise the Eagles, anything he's learned in his time in Indianapolis. But overall, I still think that the Eagles are the better team. They've got one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL. And Andrew Luck, we've said he's looked pretty solid so far, but he's going up against one of the best defenses. I think he's going to struggle here in Week 3, and I've got the Eagles winning.
I think this is going to be a fantastic game to watch. I'm very excited to watch it. Of course, two of the elite quarterbacks in this league, with Andrew Luck and Carson Wentz. This is going to be a very offensive-heavy matchup, but I think it's going to be the difference is the defense is what's going to win it here. Of course, both quarterbacks are extremely talented, but Andrew Luck is going against a Super Bowl winning championship defense, and Carson Wentz is going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. And I think that's going to be big of enough of a difference for Carson Wentz to get the win here for the Eagles in his return.
Sorry, Colts. At least Darius Leonard looks good.
Yeah, he does. Hey, got to find the silver lining somewhere. Tennessee Titans at Jacksonville Jaguars. Really not too much story in this one. Kind of one of the more games of the week. Who you got?
Titans are so weird. They go out and lose, Week 1's game, lose all of their offensive players like I talked about, and then they come out and beat the Texans in Week 2. I don't understand them. They're such a mystery, but the Jags aren't. They're good, like we've seen.
Yeah.
If you beat the Patriots, that's a pretty good indication that you're probably pretty good. So it's a home game for the Jags. They're going to win.
I agree. I think Jaguars are going to win this one in convincing fashion, and I think it's not really that close. Cincinnati Bengals at Carolina Panthers. Who you got?
This one's one of the more interesting matchups for sure. We got, the Bengals, who have been a very pleasant surprise starting the season 2-0. Panthers have been solid. Of course, you know that the Greg Olsen injury is going to hurt. I think this one's one to keep an eye on. That's another one that's going to be quietly one of the better games here in Week 3. And I think there's a chance that, the Bengals finally prove that they actually are for real with a 3-0 start. So I am going to pick the Bengals, and you know what? I'm going to pick them to win 34-23 because why not?
Interesting. I think this might actually be the first game in which we differ because I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers on this one. I like Cam Newton better than I like Andy Dalton, and I like Christian McCaffrey more than I like Joe Mixon. So
I like Christian McCaffrey too. He's on my fantasy team.
Well, there you go. So I'll take the Panthers in this one. DJ's going to take the Bengals. So one of us is going to be right. One of us is not next week. Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. Two teams that I'm really not sure what to make of just yet, but what do you think?
I still think that Baltimore is a significantly better team than Denver at this point in time. Denver offense has looked very shaky to me. I know that they're 2-0, but I think that they're the worst 2-0 team in the league. Case Keenum has been very The running game has been all right. I suppose Phillip Lindsay's actually looked pretty good. And, the defense is solid like it's always been. But I think that Baltimore's the better team overall. And I don't think that the Broncos are going to suddenly turn on the Jets and burn the Baltimore defense. It's a home game for the Ravens. I think they win.
So this will be our second game in which we differ. I'm taking the Denver Broncos here. I think Case Keenum is a serviceable enough quarterback, and I think that Broncos defense is too good, and they will be able to find a way to contain Joe Flacco. I think the Broncos are going to find a way to win this one. New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. Who you got and why?
This is always one of the best matchups. When these two teams play, it's a joy to watch every year because it's always a close game. It isn't Atlanta, so you'd think maybe I'd go with the Falcons, but I'm actually going to pick a little bit of an upset here and go with the Saints. They did not look their sharpest in Week 1 or Week 2. I know Drew Brees had a big Week 1, but the defense couldn't do a thing. And against Cleveland, they both kind of stunk a little bit. I'm thinking Week 3 is going to be a nice rebound week, especially, taking advantage of a Falcons roster that has a lot of bruises on it. So I like the Saints to go into Atlanta and come out with a victory. I'm
going to take Atlanta here. I think that the Saints defense has looked absolutely awful in the past 2 weeks. I think Matt Ryan's going to exploit them here, especially at home. I'm going to take the Falcons to win this one in a close one. The Battle of LA up next. It is officially the Los Angeles Chargers at the Los Angeles Rams. Probably, for my money, the game of the week in this week in the NFL. Really a close one to call. Who you got, DJ?
Obviously, these are two of the most talented rosters in the league, so I'm really looking forward to watching this one as well. Overall, I just think that the Rams are better, and they've shown that they're better. I mean, they have a high-powered offense, a great offensive line. Defense is solid everywhere. There are really no holes on this Rams roster, except, I suppose, for the kicking part now since Zerline's going to be out. But there's just so much to love about this Rams team. And, they created this superstar roster over the offseason. I think it's going to take them places. And I like the Chargers. I think that they're going to make a deep run as well. But I think that the Rams are better, and they're going to show that they're better on Sunday.
I agree with you on this one. I think it'll be close, but I'm going to take the LA Rams to come out with a home win on this one. All right, last couple games here. Chicago Bears at the Arizona Cardinals. Who you got and why?
Man, this one's easy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Like I said, Arizona has been a contender for the worst team in the NFL this year. I don't see them suddenly turning on the Jets here against a Chicago defense that has looked very solid. Like I said, Arizona has scored 6 points all of the season. The Chicago defense has doubled that. The defense has doubled that. So I don't see any way that the Cardinals win this. Bears go into the desert and they win.
I agree with you 100%. The Bears defense with Khalil Mack has looked way too good for Sam Bradford in this putrid Cardinals offense, unfortunately. So
poor Cards.
Yeah, Chicago Bears are going to come out with a win here on Sunday. Dallas Cowboys at Seattle Seahawks. On paper, this should be a good game, but I don't see it happening that way. DJ, what do you think?
Both of these teams used to be good. We're imagining the glory days back just a couple years ago.
The glory days of 2016.
2014, yeah. These teams were good recently, but neither of them have really looked that impressive. And I'm going to go to the Seahawks because it's a home game and they got Russell Wilson.
This very well could turn into one of those games of both teams just trying to lose it. I mean, I really think that this could be a very sloppy game on both sides here. As much as it pains me as an Eagles fan to do it, I'm actually going to take the Dallas Cowboys on this one. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a really good day. They have the much better offensive line. I think that's going to be a deciding factor here. Not a pretty game, but a win here for the Dallas Cowboys on the road. Sunday Night Football, New England Patriots at Detroit Lions. Who you got?
I feel really bad about saying this because I like the Lions, but they're going to start 0-3.
I agree.
It's the Patriots. How can you not pick the Patriots? They win every year, and I'm sorry, Lions fans, but you're not going to win the NFC this year when the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears all look really solid. So Patriots.
I agree with you. I don't think this one's going to be close. I think Brady might have actually a career day here and just shred the Lions secondary.
If Sam Darnold can have a career day, why not Tom Brady too?
Exactly. And then the last game of this upcoming week, Monday Night Football, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The return of Fitzmagic. Sorry, Minka. Who you got and why?
Does Fitzmagic TM come back again and do it? I'm going to say it runs out here in Week 3. I think that the Steelers are going to go into Tampa Bay and get their first win of the season. It's bound to happen sometime. I think that the Fitzmagic is going to run out eventually. I think it's really do or die time for this Pittsburgh defense. They need to step it up immediately. And, it doesn't look like it's going to be easy against, a team that has looked very solid this year like the Buccaneers. I got to admit, I'm sorry, Bucs. I picked you to go 2-14 this year, and you're already 2-0, so it looks like that's not going to be a very good prediction, but hey, anything could happen.
I like the optimism, but unfortunately, I'm going with a hot hand here. I'm going with Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to pull out a big home win on Monday Night Football. Bucs stay hot. Steelers go to 0-2-1, and it is going to be tough times in Pittsburgh. But that is it for Week 3. We are just about to wrap up our first episode of 4th and Long here, but before we do, we like to end all of these episodes with some bold predictions because here on 4th and Long, me and DJ just go for it, and we are going to go for it now. DJ, I'm going to start with you. Give me one bold prediction for this upcoming week in the NFL.
One bold prediction for this upcoming week. All right. I said that I liked Derek Carr a lot. He looked very solid last week against Denver, and he's playing a Miami defense that I don't think is especially spectacular or anything. So here's our bold prediction. Last week he was 29 of 32. Let's make that 31 of 32. Derek Carr throws only one incompletion all day against Miami.
That is very much a bold prediction. I'm going to go with another quarterback-related one. I think Carson Wentz throws for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in his return against the Indianapolis Colts to lead the Eagles to victory on Sunday. So thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode of 4th and Long. Again, you can check us out every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on CommRadio. We're going to start to stream over Facebook Live. Again, I'm your host, Jason Marcus, alongside me, DJ Bauer. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned to CommRadio. Marking Out is coming up next. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye.